In 1936, the deadliest heat wave in American history pushed temperatures past 110 degrees across the Midwest, and almost no home had air conditioning. People slept in parks, on rooftops, in cellars, and somehow most of them survived. How? They knew things we have forgotten. Number 14 on this list was so effective that newspaper doctors printed it as advice, but today almost nobody remembers it. And number 3 uses nothing but a bedsheet and a bowl of water to drop a room's temperature by as much as 10 degrees. These 25 tricks kept entire families cool for generations before electricity made us soft. When the next blackout hits, and it will, the people who remember these will be the comfortable ones. Before we start, hit that subscribe button, because this might be the most useful video you watch all summer. Let's count down. Number 25, beat the sun before it gets in. The biggest mistake people make in a heat wave is waiting until the house is already hot to react. Your grandmother never made that mistake. At first light, before the sun cleared the rooftops, she walked the house and shut every blind, curtain, and shutter on the east and south sides. By the time the afternoon sun was hammering the glass, those windows were already armored against it. Up to 30% of unwanted heat enters a home through windows, and once it is in, it lingers for hours. Closing up at dawn was free, took 2 minutes, and made the difference between a bearable evening and a sleepless one. People who lived through those summers will tell you the same thing. You do not fight the heat at noon. You lock it out at sunrise. Number 24, dress like it is 1910. Before synthetic fabrics, families dressed for the heat without thinking about it. Loose cotton and linen, pale colors, nothing tight against the skin. The trick was not just the fabric, but the fit. A loose shirt creates a pocket of air that your sweat can evaporate into, and that evaporation is what actually cools you. Tight polyester traps the moisture and turns you into a greenhouse. In the South, men wore lightweight seersucker because the puckered weave held the cloth off the skin. Women kept a light cotton house dress for the worst afternoons. Today we reach for a moisture-wicking gym shirt that costs $40 and does half the job a loose cotton shirt does for free. Light, loose, and pale. That was the uniform of every American summer before the thermostat. Number 23, kill the hidden heat. Walk through your house during a blackout, and you would not notice it. But in normal times, your home is full of tiny furnaces, the old refrigerator, the television left on standby, the phone chargers, the lamps with their hot bulbs. Each one quietly pumps warmth into the room. Families before air conditioning had almost none of this, and the houses ran cooler for it. The trick is to unplug everything you are not using and switch off every light you can do without. Incandescent bulbs throw off heat you can feel with your hand from 1 foot away. Swapping them or simply leaving them dark cools a room more than people expect. In a blackout, the power is gone anyway, but in a heat wave with the lights on, killing the hidden heat is the quiet trick almost nobody thinks of. Number 22, shut the kitchen down. Nothing heats a house faster than an oven, and our grandmothers knew that turning on the range in July was an act of madness. In the hottest weeks, they simply stopped cooking hot food. Supper became cold cuts, sliced tomatoes, bread, hard-boiled eggs done early in the morning, and fruit kept cool in the cellar. The icebox salad and the cold ham plate were not laziness. They were survival. A single hot meal could raise the kitchen temperature by 10 degrees and hold it there until midnight. If something had to be cooked, it was done at dawn or out in the yard. Today, we crank the oven on the hottest day of the year and then wonder why the bedroom is unbearable at 10 o'clock. The no-cook kitchen kept the heat where it belonged, outside. Number 21, go low. Heat rises. It is the most basic law in the house, and the old families lived by it. When the upstairs bedrooms turned into ovens, the children's mattresses came down to the parlor floor, and on the worst nights, the whole family slept in the cellar. A basement can sit 15 to 20 degrees cooler than a second-floor bedroom in the same house because the earth around it stays cool no matter what the sun is doing. People who grew up before air conditioning remember those cellar nights vividly. The cool concrete, the quiet, the relief of finally being able to breathe. If you have a basement, it is the single coolest room you own during a heat wave. Going low was not a hardship. It was the secret refuge every family knew about. Number 20, flush the house at night. Here was the rhythm of a summer house before air conditioning, sealed tight by day, thrown wide open by night. Once the sun went down and the outside air finally dropped below the indoor temperature, the windows came up on every side of the house. The cooler night air poured in, pushed the trapped heat out, and rinsed the rooms clean before morning. The key was timing. Open too early, while the outside was still hotter than the inside, and you only made things worse. Families learned to read the evening, waiting for that moment when the breeze turned cool before they flung the sashes up. Then at dawn, it all closed again to hold the coolness in. This single daily ritual, open at night and seal at dawn, is the backbone of every trick on this list. Number 19, reverse the fan. Most people point a fan at themselves and call it done, but the real trick is to make the fan work for the whole room. In the evening, set a box fan in a window facing outward, blowing the hot indoor air out into the night. Then, open a window on the opposite cooler side of the house. The fan pulls cool air in through that far window and drags it across every room on its way to the exhaust. You have turned a single fan into a current that moves the entire house. Families with one electric fan and no air conditioning swore by this. One fan pointed outward did more than 3 fans pointed inward. It is not the breeze on your skin that matters most. It is moving the hot air out and letting the cool air follow. Number 18, cool the pulse points. Your blood runs close to the surface in a few key spots: the wrists, the neck, the temples, and the insides of the elbows. Cool those, and you cool the blood that travels through your whole body. Our grandmothers knew this instinctively. A washcloth wrung out in cold water, folded and laid across the back of the neck, could take the edge off the worst afternoon. Nurses in the days before air conditioning used cold compresses on the wrists and neck to bring down a feverish patient. And the same principle works on a healthy person sweltering in July. It costs nothing but a cloth and a little water. Keep a few damp cloths in the coolest part of the house and rotate them. 5 minutes on the pulse points and you feel the heat loosen its grip. Number 17, soak your feet. There is a reason people who work outdoors in the heat talk about cooling their feet. Your feet have a huge number of blood vessels close to the skin, and they shed heat fast when you cool them. Before air conditioning, a basin of cool water by the chair was a summer evening fixture. You sat on the porch, slid your feet into the water, and within minutes felt the relief spread up your legs and through your body. Add a few stones kept in the cellar or a bottle from the icebox, and the water stayed cool longer. It was the lazy man's air conditioner, and it worked. Tired, swollen, overheated feet at the end of a brutal day, dropped into cool water, gave the whole body permission to relax. Simple, cheap, and almost completely forgotten. Number 16, build a poor man's air conditioner. Here is where the old know-how turns clever. Take a frozen jug of water or 2 and set them in a shallow pan directly in front of a fan. As the fan blows across the ice, it picks up the chill and throws genuinely cold, moist air into the room. Families who could get ice from the Iceman used this exact trick decades before window units existed. The melting jugs go right back in the freezer or the icebox to refreeze for tomorrow. A couple of large frozen bottles can take the bite out of a single room for hours. It is the closest thing to real air conditioning you can rig with what is already in your kitchen. And during a blackout, if you have a cooler with ice, it can be the difference between misery and a decent night's sleep. Number 15, eat your water. Long before sports drinks, families beat the heat from the inside with what was on the table. Watermelon, cucumber, cantaloupe, tomatoes, and lettuce, all of them are more than 90% water, and eating them in a heat wave cools and hydrates at the same time. A slice of cold watermelon on the porch was not just a treat, it was medicine. Our grandparents leaned on watery foods through the worst weeks because they knew heavy, hot, greasy meals sat in your stomach and made you feel worse. Light, cold, and full of water was the rule. Keep these foods in the coolest spot you have and graze on them through the day instead of one big meal. You stay hydrated without even thinking about it, and a child who will not drink another glass of water will happily eat a wedge of melon. Number 14, hang a wet sheet in the window. This is the trick the newspaper doctors used to print, and it is one of the most effective on this whole list. Take a bed sheet, soak it in cold water, wring it so it is damp but not dripping, and hang it across an open window where the night breeze comes through. As the air passes through the wet cloth, the water evaporates, and the air comes out the other side noticeably cooler. People called it the Egyptian method, and families across America used it through every summer before air conditioning. The effect is real and measurable, a drop you can feel the moment you stand near it. Re-wet the sheet as it dries. On a dry night, with even a little breeze, a single damp sheet in the right window can change the whole feel of a room. Free, ancient, and shockingly effective. Number 13, turn your windows into mirrors. The sun does most of its damage through glass, and the old families knew how to throw it right back. Before reflective film and fancy blinds, people tacked light-colored sheets, white cardboard, or even newspaper over the sun-facing windows during the worst hours. The pale surface bounces the sunlight away before it can turn into heat inside the room. Today, the cheap version is a sheet of cardboard with aluminum foil taped to it, shiny side out, propped in the window during the afternoon. It looks rough, but it works, reflecting a large share of the sun's heat back outside instead of letting it bake the room. Renters who cannot install anybody's expensive solution have used the foil and cardboard panel for generations, ugly for a few hours, cool for the whole evening. That was a trade every family was willing to make. Number 12, the clay pot cooler. Here is a trick so old it predates electricity by thousands of years, and it still works today. Take 2 terracotta flower pots, one smaller than the other, and nest the small one inside the big one with a layer of wet sand packed in the gap between them. As the water in the sand evaporates through the porous clay, it pulls heat out of the inner pot, keeping the space inside cool. Set a small fan blowing across the damp clay, and the cooling spreads into the room. It will not chill a whole house, but for keeping a small space, your drinks or your medicine cool during a long blackout, this dirt-cheap clay rig has outlasted every gadget that tried to replace it. 2 pots, some sand, and water. That is the entire shopping list. Number 11, bring back the sleeping porch. There was a time when nearly every house in the hot parts of America had a sleeping porch, a screened section where the family carried their beds in summer and slept in the open night air. It was not a luxury. It was the only way to sleep when the bedrooms held the day's heat like a brick oven. Out on the porch, the breeze moved freely. The screens kept the bugs out, and the temperature could be 10 or 15 degrees cooler than inside. Whole families remember those nights fondly. The stars overhead, the sound of crickets, the cool air finally arriving around midnight. You do not need a built-in porch to use the idea. A cot on a screened balcony, a mattress by a wide-open window, even a tent in the backyard. Get yourself into the moving night air, and sleep finally comes. Number 10. Freeze the bed. This one sounds strange until you try it on a desperate night. An hour before bed, fold your pillowcase and a top sheet into a plastic bag and lay them in the freezer. When you are ready to sleep, pull them out and make the bed with cold linens. The chill does not last all night, but it lasts long enough to let you fall asleep, and falling asleep is the hard part in a heat wave. People without air conditioning have used cold cloth at bedtime for generations, from chilled nightcaps to damp sheets laid over the body. During a blackout, the freezer holds its cold for a while after the power dies, so this trick still has a window of usefulness even then. A cold pillow against an overheated head is a small mercy, but on the worst night of the summer, small mercies are everything. Number 9. Hang wet sheets in the doorways. Take the wet sheet idea and scale it up. In the old farmhouses, families would soak full bed sheets and hang them across open doorways and in the path of the breeze that ran through the house. Every bit of air that moved through the home had to pass through that wet cloth, and it came out the other side cooler each time. With the windows open on both ends and a fan helping the air along, the whole house became a chain of cooling stations. The sheets had to be re-wet as they dried, which on the hottest days meant tending them every hour or so, but the relief was worth the work. It is the same evaporative principle behind every cooler on this list, just spread across the whole house instead of one window. Cheap, low-tech, and genuinely powerful in dry heat. Number 8. The reverse hot water bottle. Your grandmother had a rubber hot water bottle for cold winter nights, but the smart ones knew it worked both ways. Fill it with cold water and a few ice cubes, screw the cap down tight, and tuck it into the bed by your feet or hold it against your belly. It is the same idea as the cold compress, a pocket of cold pressed against the body to pull heat away. But it stays cold for hours and follows you under the covers. Old nurses used cold water bottles to bring down feverish patients in the days before air conditioning, and families used them on sweltering nights to make sleep possible. If you do not have a water bottle, a sealed plastic jug wrapped in a thin towel does the same job. Cold at the feet, cool through the whole body, an old trick worth remembering. Number 7. Wet your hair and your neck. The simplest trick on this list, and one our grandparents used without a second thought. Run cool water over your wrists and the back of your neck, dampen your hair, and tie a wet bandana or kerchief loosely around your throat. As the water evaporates off your skin, it carries your body heat away with it. And because the neck carries so much blood close to the surface, the effect spreads fast. Farmhands and laborers worked through brutal summers with a soaked bandana around their necks, re-wetting it from the well or the pump whenever it dried. It is the cheapest air conditioning ever invented, costing nothing but a little water, and it works anywhere, indoors or out. A damp head and a wet neckerchief have carried more Americans through more heat waves than any machine ever built. Number 6. Shade the glass from outside. Here is the difference between the old way and the modern way. We close the curtains on the inside, but by then, the sun has already passed through the glass and turned to heat in the room. Our grandparents stopped the sun before it ever reached the window. Awnings stretched over every south and west window. Porch roofs threw shade across the front of the house, and shade trees were planted on the sunny side specifically to cool the home decades later. An awning or an outside shade can block the vast majority of the sun's heat before it touches the glass, which beats any inside curtain, hands down. If you cannot hang an awning, even a sheet strung outside the window or a leafy branch propped against the wall helps block the sun outside, and the heat never gets a chance to come in. Number 5, the peppermint trick. Second pattern break, and this one is a little secret. Menthol, the cooling compound in peppermint, fools the nerves in your skin into registering cold. Even when nothing has actually changed temperature, our grandmothers kept peppermint oil and menthol salves in the cupboard, and on a brutal day, a tiny dab on the temples, the back of the neck, or the chest gave a wave of cool that felt almost magical. A cup of peppermint tea, oddly enough, does the same from the inside. It will not lower the actual temperature of the room, and you have to use only the smallest amount, because too much menthol burns rather than cools. But as a quick hit of relief when you are at the end of your rope on a sweltering afternoon, the peppermint trick has been quietly passed between generations of people who knew that sometimes feeling cool is half the battle. Number 4, master the thermal mass. This is the trick that ties the whole day together, and it is the secret behind the old thick-walled houses that stayed cool with no power at all. The walls, the floors, the furniture all absorb and hold temperature. The art is in timing. Through the cool of the night, you throw the house open and let every surface soak up the coolness. Then, at the first hint of dawn, before the sun has any strength, you seal it all up, blinds down, windows shut, doors closed. Now those cool walls and floors work all day like a battery, slowly releasing their coolness into the rooms while the heat is locked out. Families who lived in old stone and brick homes barely needed any of the other tricks because the house itself did the work. Open by night, sealed by day. Get the timing right and your house cools itself. Number 3, the wind tunnel. This is the 10-degree trick, the one I promised you at the start, and it is the most powerful single setup on this list. Take a wet sheet, wrung damp, and hang it in an open window where a breeze comes in. Now place a box fan a few feet behind it, blowing toward the room. The fan drives air through the wet sheet. The water evaporates as the air passes, and what reaches you on the other side can be as much as 10 degrees cooler than the outside air. You have built a swamp cooler out of a bed sheet and a fan. Add a pan of ice in front of the fan, and the effect is stronger still. This combination, moving air plus evaporation, is exactly how every real evaporative cooler in the world works. Our grandparents stumbled onto it with nothing but cloth and a breeze, and on a dry night, it is close to miraculous. Number 2, slow down and salt up. Third pattern break, and this one is less about the house and more about you. In the days before air conditioning, people did not power through a heat wave. They surrendered to it. The hardest work was done at dawn and dusk. The middle of the day was for rest in the shade, and nobody was ashamed of an afternoon nap in July. Pushing your body hard in extreme heat is how people get hurt, and the old families knew it in their bones. They also knew that sweating washes salt out of you, so they leaned on salty foods, broths, and pinches of salt in their water to hold themselves together. Move slowly, rest in the heat of the day, and replace what you sweat out. The smartest cooling trick of all is to stop fighting the sun and learn, like your grandparents did, to bend around it. Number 1, the chimney effect, and the most powerful trick of all, the one that can cool an entire house with no machine and no power, is the stack effect, what the old builders called the chimney effect. Hot air rises, so the trick is to give it a way out at the top of the house and a way in at the bottom. Open the lowest windows on the cool, shaded side of the house and open the highest windows or an attic vent up top. The hot air pours out through the high openings, and as it leaves, it pulls cool air in through the low ones, creating a steady, gentle current that runs through the whole house on its own. Old homes were built for exactly this, with tall ceilings, transom windows above the doors, and cupolas on the roof to let the heat escape. Families ran their houses on this invisible draft for centuries before electricity. Get the high and low openings right, and your house breathes for itself, drawing the heat up and out while the cool flows in below. No power, no cost, no machine, just the oldest cooling trick we ever knew, and the one we forgot the moment we got air conditioning. So there you have it, 25 tricks that kept American families cool for generations before anyone owned a thermostat. Try one this week: the wet sheet in the window, the frozen bottle in front of the fan, the cellar on the worst night. Then come back and tell me in the comments which one actually worked for you. And one thing the old families always knew that we should never forget: in a serious heat wave, check on the elderly, the very young, and anyone living alone. And if the heat ever turns dangerous, get to a cooling center or somewhere with air conditioning. These tricks are wisdom, but staying safe always comes first. Your grandparents knew how to beat the heat. Now you do too.